Shabbat Shalom, dear friends. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. I'm recording now on the last day of Hanukkah, Zot Hanukkah, Parshat Miketz. This is Rabbi Schoenberg of the Jewish Center. Hope you all had a wonderful and joyous Hanukkah. See a little bit of light coming in from my window. That's kind of the afterglow of Hanukkah. We want the light of Hanukkah to continue to light up our lives and give us hope all year long. Returning from Hanukkah, let me turn to the Parsha Miketz. This is the story of Joseph being reunited with his brothers and the tension that's manifest between them. Let me read from you from the middle of our Parsha, from chapter 42, Miketz. Now Joseph was the vizier of the land. It was he who dispersed rations to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed low to him with their faces to the ground. When Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he acted like a stranger toward them and spoke harshly to them. He asked them, "Where do you come from?" And they said, "From the land of Canaan to procure food." For though Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. Recalling the dreams that he had dreamed about them, Joseph said to them, "You are spies, but you have come to see the land in its nakedness." So these are very powerful words. And Joseph recalls his original dreams from 22 years earlier. So let me remind you about what those two dreams were. In the first dreams, there was some sheaves of wheat, and they stood up, and then they were on one side, and there was a single sheaf on the other, and the multiple sheaves bowed down to the single sheaf. And then there was a second dream, and in that dream, the sun and the moon and 11 stars bowed down again to the single, and that was to Joseph. So here they were, the strong, the mighty, the multitude bowing down to the single, and that was representative of Joseph. And now it's 22 years later, and in this Parsha, we learn that here when Joseph meets his brothers, what does he do? He remembers the original dream. What's the significance of that? Some of the commentators talk about the tension between the morality and the lives of Joseph versus the lifestyle and the morality of Joseph. What was the lifestyle of the brothers? The lifestyle of the brothers was pastoral. It was the model existence, to live secluded, protective, raising your sheep. Your spiritual life was among the animals and the woods and nature, and there you could commune with God. Joseph's model was a very different model. He was urban. He was a business person. He was making deals. He was becoming a politician. He was the second most powerful man of all of Egypt. And why did Joseph's brothers not recognize him? Why did they bow down to him? Because they didn't think it was possible for a Jew to be religious, to have a moral life in the urban society, because they were only thinking of themselves in the pastoral environment. It wasn't possible. But who was Joseph? Joseph was able to live a Jewish life, a proud Jewish life, even though he was a businessman, even though he was in politics, even though he rose to be the second most powerful person in all of Egypt. He could be a proud Jew. He could live his life as a Jew because his Jewish life was internal. It was inside of him. And that's why his brothers didn't recognize him. And that's why Joseph remembers the dreams to point out, it's 22 years later, and you thought that I wouldn't make it, but I'm letting you know I made it as a proud Jew here. That's really the message here this week in the Parsha. We're no longer Jews who live isolated, secluded. We are in the midst of things. We live in urban society. We're involved in politics. We're involved in business. And the message is, we can be like Joseph. We can be Jewish. We can be proudly Jewish, even though we're intermingling with all of the things that go on around us in society. Let me share the story, actually a moving story, of Mimi Rifkin from a book called G.I. Jews. G.I. Jews. Mimi Rifkin was a 20-year-old who enlisted in the WACs, the women who served as volunteers in the U.S. Army. She writes about how it came about. She grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and as a young Jew, she experienced anti-Semitism. As a young child in school one day, kids stopped playing with her. She came home and she said, "Mom, what happened? They stopped playing with me." Her mom went to school and discovered that the teacher had told the children that Mimi was Jewish and they shouldn't play with her. So when mom told her daughter Mimi this story, she then added the following line. She said, "Mimi, remember, you're Jewish. You'll always be Jewish. Be a proud Jew." Several years later, World War II broke out and Mimi enlisted in the WACs. And there she said that what happened to her, that she was sent to Calcutta, India, to serve as one of the photographers and those who analyzed the photographs that were taken as the planes flew over the Himalayas to take photographs of what was happening. And Mimi records in the book G.I. Jews what it was like to be in Calcutta. And she wrote, "Here I was in Fantasyland. It was a beautiful place. It was just magnificent. It was crowded, but I was the only Jew and I could be Jewish. Every Friday night, I lit candles at the base. Every Friday night, I davened the Shabbat prayers as I remembered them. And all the people around me, all the soldiers came and said, 'Who are you? What are you doing?' And she said, 'I'm Mimi from Tulsa, and I'm a proud Jew.'" My dear friends, as Hanukkah wanes and we come into Shabbat, let us recall we're no longer living in isolation. We're living in the midst of everything that's going on. We're with non-Jews. We're in America. We're doing everything we need to do to be Americans. But we can also be proud Jews. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for being with us.